This video is going to have two rules. The first rule is going to involve a tangent and a secant. So if you look at number 1, it says PA is the tangent, it touches the circle at one point, and PBC is the secant going through the circle, touching it in two places. If PC, the whole length of the secant, is 16, and BC equals 12, find the length of PA, which is our x. When you have a tangent and a secant, your rule is going to be the outside length times the whole thing equals, then you do it again, the outside length times the whole thing. Okay, so let's do the tangent first. The piece that's outside of the circle is the x. And the whole entire tangent is also x. So you're going to have always the same thing multiplied by itself here for the tangent. In the secant, the outside piece is PB. PB is outside of the circle. Well, if I do 16 minus 12, I have that distance as 4. Times the whole thing, which is said from P all the way to C, is 16, the whole entire secant. Then we just solve it. X times x is x squared. 4 times 16 is 64. Take the square root of 64, and we get PA to be 8. Number 2, this time we have to actually draw the diagram. So we have tangent CD, so a tangent touches the circle at one point. Now to see which ends C and which ends D, if you look at the next part, it says secant CEF. So see how secant goes through the circle. Okay, not exactly straight, but close enough. See how the C is the common letter, and it says drawn to circle O from an external point C. So it tells you the external point is C. So we have tangent CD, and then secant C. E is where it touches the circle here. Keep going F. So you have to make sure you go in order C, E, F. You can't flip the F and the E around. CD equals 8. CE equals 4. What is the length of EF? I don't know, so that's the x. So we're going to use the same rule as before. I'm just going to use the first letter, though. It's easier for me to write. This is what I do in my worksheets anyways. So outside times whole equals outside times whole. For the tangent, the part that's outside of the circle is 8, and the whole entire tangent is also 8. Remember, you're going to have the same thing twice. Outside of the secant, so this part's outside of the circle, I should say, this part here is 4. And then the whole thing, well, part of the secant's x, part of the secant's 4, so the whole thing is x plus 4, that binomial. And whenever you have a binomial, you want to make sure that you put parentheses around it. So 8 times 8 is 64, then we distribute, we get 4x plus 16. Subtract 16 from both sides, and we get 48 equals 4x. Divide by both sides by 4. X equals 12. Let's just make sure we don't have to plug it in. What is the length of EF? EF is x. Sometimes you have to actually plug it in, so always go back and read the question. Next, let's do two problems that involve two secants. So number 7 says PAB and PCD are secants. You can see they both go through the circle, touching it in two places. PA is 8. PB, the whole length, so I'm going to make the curvy brackets here, is 20. And PD, this whole length, is 16. What is PC? This is our x. Actually, for a tangent and a secant or two secants, the rule is the same. Outside times whole equals outside times whole. Let's do the top secant first. The part that's outside the circle is x, and the whole entire secant is 16. And the other secant, the part that's outside the circle, is 8, and the whole entire secant is 20. Then we're just going to solve. 16x equals, multiply, we get 160. Divide both sides by 16. So x equals 10. Let me just make sure again. We don't have to plug it in. And it says, what is PC? So we're done. It's just 10. And one more problem here. Number 8, we have to draw the diagram ourselves. So I already drew the circle, and I drew two secants using the program here, so they're a lot straighter than the other problem I did. Okay, JKL and JMN. Now see how the common letter is J, and it tells you it's that external point J. So J is going to be on the outside. Let's make the top secant JKL. So J, K is where it touches the circle in that first place, and then keep going L, JKL, right in order. Next one, J, M is where it's going to touch the circle here, and then N. If JK equals 8, LK equals 4, and JM equals 6, What is the length of JN? What is the length of JN? So I don't know this whole secant. I'm just going to make brackets with it. Okay, so our rule, outside times whole equals outside times whole. Top secant, the outside's 8, and the whole thing, I would have to add 8 plus 4 to get the whole secant, that's 12. The bottom secant, the outside part is 6, and the whole thing is x. It's not x plus 6 because of how I've labeled it. I already labeled the x's from one end all the way to the other of the secant. So for me, this whole thing is just x. All right, 8 times 12 is 96 equals 6x. Divide by 16. Or divide by 6. I don't know why I said that. Divide by 6. And we get 16. That's probably why I said 16 before, I'm thinking ahead. Okay, are we done? Let me just see. What is the length of JN? Yes, JN is that whole distance x.